We're going to play most of this video. I think they will break it at a logical time and complete it on Monday. But in any event, all jurors are present. As I stated, Mr. Durst has been excused this morning, though he's here speaking with Mr. DeGuerin, and Mr. Chesnoff is present representing Mr. Durst. We have not only Mr. Henderson, but Mr. Bailey and Mr. Lewin. What are you, you may be seated, and you may, what are you presenting next, Mr. Henderson?
So we're going to play the testimony of Lisa DePaulo. We'll mark the DVD as People's 262. The transcript is People's 262A. We have copies if anyone wants them. The audio is not bad, and it is playing the testimony of Lisa DePaulo.
Do you solemnly state that the testimony about to be given in the cause comprehended before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Lisa, L-I-S-A, DePaulo, D-E-P-A-U-L-O.
Can you just pull your chair closer to the mic, so whatever's going to make you more comfortable? Thank you.
So better?
Yes, thank
Ma'am, can you tell me what is your current health condition? And I don't need you to go into extreme detail, but basically, what's your current
I
state?
have got cancer, it was not caught early, and I've been in a lot of treatment.
And the treatment that you've had, does that involve chemo radiation?
Chemo radiation surgery.
And is it fair to say that today in particular, you're not feeling particularly well?
I'm still very weak, but I think the worst is over.
And in terms of your weakness, is it affecting your memory?
No.
And is it something that you're moving a little more slowly?
Yes.
If there's anything that I ask you don't understand, you can repeat, please let me know.
Absolutely.
Also, if you are tired at any point, you're certainly free to ask his honor. He will break it. So, okay, I'm going to start. What is your current occupation?
Freelance journalist.
What is your current occupation?
Freelance magazine journalist.
And can you tell me, when you say freelance magazine journalist, you're basically a reporter, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long have you been employed in that area?
36 years.
And when you say a freelance, what does that mean?
Well, it means you get assignments from different places. And I haven't been working a lot the last 20 months, but the difference between freelance and contract writing is piece by piece.
And when you say the last 20 months, does that coincide with?
Correct.
But wait, so what's happening is the attorneys will ask you questions, and you'll give answers, and our court reporter will write down your answers. And in order to do that, you have to wait until the question's finished, or she won't be able to get both the question and the answers. So just pause a little bit. Go ahead.
I know you can figure out the questions I'm asking, and you're able to answer before I finish, but so if you could just wait to hear me stop. Does that coincide, that 20 months, with your breast cancer?
Correct.
And when you say you're a freelance journalist, in your 36 years in the field, have you actually worked for certain periodicals?
Yes, mostly national magazines.
And what magazines have you worked for during your career?
GQ, Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, Vogue, George, Buck, Bush.
And what kind of education and training do you have in terms of your position as a journalist?
I have a degree from the University of Pennsylvania, Annenberg School of Communication.
And what degree is that?
A bachelor's of
Bachelor's. And approximately when did you complete your education?
1982.
And since that time, we're doing math, I just added it up, that means that since that time you've been a journalist?
full-time journal since the day I got out of college.
And when I say the name, Robert Durst, is that a name you're familiar with?
Yes.
And can you tell me, when did you first hear that name?
It would be early January of 2001. I was, when I was assigned by New York Magazine to go out to LA and cover this murder that just happened to a former rape at New York Magazine.
And when you say covering a murder, are you talking about the Susan Berman murder?
Correct.
And had Susan Berman at one time worked at New York Magazine?
Yes, she was a beloved writer.
And so you're being asked to do a story while you're working for New York Magazine on a former journalist from New York Magazine who's been murdered.
Yes.
Prior to that time, had you ever met Susan Berman?
No,
Did you know who she was?
I did because she wrote some great pieces, but she was before my time.
And so you were assigned a story, you said you came out to Los Angeles?
Yeah, they basically met the editors told me I'd written quite a few crime investigative pieces, and they just said, this terrible thing happened to Susan Berman. Can you get on the next one?
And that was back when magazines had budgets to send out journalists to actually.
So you continue to answer before the question is completed. So please wait, pause, take a breath, give your answer. Yes.
Your reporter's training is just your quick. So, all right, yeah, so you came out here, what was the purpose of coming out here? What were you planning on doing?
To find as many people as I could who knew her, to talk to as many people as I could about the theories of what happened to her. You really never know where it's going to lead. You go into it, open-ended with a blank slate. She was a fascinating character, and that was a part of the story.
And when you came out here, did you end up interviewing numerous people?
Yes.
And as a result of your work on this case, did you end up authoring several articles?
Yes.
Was one of those articles a story called, quote, "Who Killed the Gangster's Daughter," unquote?
That was the first article 20 years ago.
And was that published approximately March 12th of 2001?
Yes, that was the update. I believe it might have been out of the week ago.
And pursuant to your work on that article and in interviewing various people, were there some people who spoke to you, what I would refer to as on the record?
Most did, yes.
And what is on, I know you understand, I know that the court knows, but what does on the record mean?
It means that everything they're telling you can use in peace and you can attribute it to them.
Were there certain individuals you spoke to who agreed to speak to you, quote, off the record, unquote?
Yes, or not for attribution, which meant I could use what they were telling me, but not put them right in on that information.
So you could say, somebody told me the car was green, but you weren't able to say who that person was.
Pretty much.
When I say the names Nick and Terry Chabin, are you familiar with those two people?
Yes, I am.
And how do you know them?
Well, I can say this now because they gave me permission to use their names now. They were originally anonymous sources, or not for attribution sources of mine. And then I approached them after I heard from you and asked if they would be willing to go on the record for attribution with the things they had told me back in 2001. And they readily agreed.
So originally, you spoke to both Nick and Terry, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it true, and I'm going to get into this in more detail, you actually quoted some things Nick told you in your articles, but you did not name him as the source?
That's correct.
And then eventually, you ended up years later going back to them and getting permission to release what they had told you to me in my office. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And back then, it was your habit and custom to tape these interviews.
Always.
And when you would tape them, would you then go back and transcribe the tape recording?
Yes, and I always transcribe all my tapes because sometimes people would go off the record in the course of an interview. And I didn't learn to transcribe what I should be hearing that.
And if I were to ask you in terms of how careful you were transcribing your own tapes, what would the response be?
I think I'm overly careful. And so I keep in the ums and ahs and then I'm sure you do.
You had a
For the record, she was pointing to the court reporter.
Correct.
Did you interview Nick Chavin December 10th, 2001?
I did.
And were those, was that interview tape recorded?
Yes.
And you ended up transcribing those notes?
Yes.
I had a two-page document. When I interviewed the court's stapler, I realized I should have stapled this. And I probably should have stapled this in advance. Why don't you? These are 2 pages worth of notes, and I'd like to mark them as people's next in order.
That should be 108 and that's 109. 108, 108A, and then this is to go to 109.
Now, I want you see this on your monitor.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize these notes?
Yep.
And what do you recognize them to be?
Transcriptions of my tape interview with Nick Chavin on December 10th.
Is that 7/10 of 2001?
Yes, it was after that.
And are these notes that you actually took while listening to the tape recording of the interview?
No, I transcribed verbatim the tape recording of the interview.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So as you're listening to the interview and you're transcribing it. Is that correct?
No, I transcribed it after.
Right. Okay. You do the interview, it's taped.
Yes.
Then you're listening to the interview itself and you're transcribing it.
Correct.
And if I were to ask you, do these notes accurately depict the interview you had with Dick Chavin?
From what I see, yes.
And there are, within those notes, there are certain comments that you will yourself put in that are your comments. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to have her read these notes into evidence. Now, are you able, is it big enough for you to read?
Yes.
So if you can, so as I was saying, if you can indicate if there is something that is written down that are your kind of observations that were not a part of the interview, just clarify what that is, okay?
Sure.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So, I stated it that there was a story I heard that at the service, you seemed upset by the fact that Susan had told people she thought, including you, that she believed Bobby had done this years ago. Nick, I was very upset about it. Me, yes, that's what the source thought. Nick, yeah, she used to tell me it all the time. But Susan and Bobby were very, very dear friends. Very, very dear friends, okay? And Susan would always say, Chinga, Bobby did it, but that doesn't matter. We love him and Kathy's gone. Me, she said, what? Nick, she would say, Bobby did it, that doesn't mean we don't love him. You know, Kathy's gone, there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do, and we love Bob. And my response was, no, you didn't. This is still Nick talking. You have to understand, and I've always been of the belief that he didn't. I would say, I guess, up to about a month ago, or 2 weeks ago. No, he didn't. How do you know, Susan? Because he told me. Now I have forgotten that for years until,
Let me stop you for a moment. There are little, let's forget what we call those things.
Asterisk?
asterisk.
Asterisks, thank you. What do those asterisks mean?
As I transcribe something that jumps out to me, I put asterisks in, so later when I'm writing, I can search those and not forget them. Sometimes it's just a fact.
So you're putting asterisks if you think is important that you
Right.
might want to look at later.
Right.
And when Rick Shaven was referring, when he says, I guess about a month or 2 weeks ago, was he referring to Susan's murder?
I took it to mean that he was referring to Gauss.
Or Dallas, that's my mistake. Fantastic. All right, you can continue reading. I'm going to move it up a little bit somewhere.
Okay, wherever Susan, Nick said that Susan told her because he told me. And then Nick says, no, I have forgotten that for years until, and I said, until she died? And he said, yeah. And also, Susan had an imagination. She came off like a pathological liar, but she didn't lie for gain or greed. She's a writer. And I, in parentheses, said fictionalized a lot, which is a summation of what he said.
If that's you, he's not saying that, but that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's in parentheses, it's me, summing up along.
Got it.
And then he continues, accuracy was not her strong suit. She was perfectly capable of saying that without it having happened. And then I asked, do you think she made the call to the dean? Nick. Okay, so when I went out there with Charles Badwell, and he thought so, we all thought so, but the dean seems to be, and he drifts off. Do I think she made the call to the dean? Before I answer, let me say that the dean has said he knew her voice and it wasn't her voice. Are you aware of that? That's what Badley told me. Me. That he knew Susan's voice? No. Nick, no. He said he knew Kathy's voice. Me. Oh, nobody thinks it was Kathy. Nick. Oh, okay. So the dean didn't say that to Charles Badley? Me. I don't know what he said to Charles Badley, but no one believes it was Kathy. Nick. All right, well, let me answer you this way. If Bobby needed someone to make that call, it would have been Susan. He absolutely trusted Susan in a way that he didn't trust anyone else, including me. I think it goes back to who he knew the longest. And he was the only person who ever called her Susie besides her father and her Uncle Chicky. And then in parentheses, he's summing up how he tells a story of how he met Uncle Chicky once, such a cool guy, and visited him in Vegas. He was in the hospital bed, he sat in a smoking jacket and smoking a cigar in the hospital. Me. What do you think happened to Susan? Nick. He exhales in parentheses.
Why did you put, let me stop you, why did you put the exhale? What was the purpose of that?
Because I thought it was a significant response, and I wanted to take it.
So why was it that you found the exhaling to be something significant enough for you to write it down?
I asked him what I thought was one of the key questions, what do you think happened to Susan? And before he answered that, I thought that.
Did you ever she exhaled?
She did. Is that a sigh? More, an exhale but not a sigh?
Actually, I also put size in front of it.
Okay.
And did you take that exhaling to mean that that was something difficult for Mr. Shaven to be discussing?
Absolutely.
Please continue.
Really, I said that. So Nick continues, I mean, the cops keep telling me I'm the only person in North America that doesn't think you did all three of them. I mean, it's 1,000,000 against 1 and you couldn't. Me. But do you think she got to the point where, because clearly she was going to talk badly, Nick, and this is in parentheses, I'm not sure why, but it was how he told Charles Badley to call Susan.
Go to page 2, which is the page left.
Me, but he had an interview set up with her? Nick, right, because then he called her for an interview. So a week later, it's the day after Christmas, and Beverly calls me and he says, have you seen the paper? And I said, no, did your article come out? And he said, you don't know what happened? I said, no. And then he told me, and he said, no, I've never had anyone call me when I'm setting up an interview and the person's killed. So I'm the one who throws off. Me, in parentheses. I tell him not to feel guilty, that Gilberta sicked him on her too.
Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yes, that another one of Kathy's friends had told, or at least she told me that she had told Charlotte that I wouldn't to call Susan.
And so what you're saying is you're saying you're comforting Nick not to feel bad that he is, in essence, sick Charlie badly on Susan.
Right.
Okay, please continue.
Nick, yeah, but I don't think Susan told Bobby that there was an interview. And in parentheses, gasps. She might have. Me, someone said to me, she might have said, look, if the press is calling me, the cops are going to call me. Let's get the story straight.
Let me stop you when you said what did the gasps mean in parentheses right before Nick says she might have?
And he was stressed. I answered him.
All right, please continue.
So let's get the story straight. Nick, right. But why after 18 years would he now suddenly be trailed off? Nothing makes sense. Me, I have 2 questions for you. Can I quote you by name in what she told you? Saying that she always told you that we love Bobby, and so on. Nick, can I think about that and call you back? When's your deadline? Me, you certainly can. Tonight. Nick, well, I'm quoting on the record. I'm sorry, you certainly can tonight. Nick, I appreciate the fact that you're giving me that. You're a responsible journalist. Me, well, I'm quoting on the record the person who had the conversation with you. But I'd like to put your name in there. Nick, okay, give me the number to call you at. Me, the other question's real easy. Give me your address so I can send you and Terry in advance of the issue.
Send. So I can send you?
So I can send you and Terry in advance of the issue. Nick, yeah, great. And he gives his address to John.
You don't need to bring that up.
Me, and one other thing. Terry was telling me about this Manhattan Ink article on Beverly Hills, and I can't find it. Nick, oh yeah, sure. I introduced Deborah to Robert Durst. Me, what year? Nick, it was the Christmas party at the Rainbow Room, 88 or 89, in parentheses, he thinks 88. Me, but this was Manhattan Ink. Nick, yes it was. In fact, I think I have it. Me, that would be great. Nick, I have every Manhattan Ink. The name of her company then was called Bob Realty. And the whole point was that it's all women brokers. Me, yeah. Nick, I'm pretty sure it was a cover story. Me, please go look for it. Will you call me right back? Nick, yeah, give me about 45 minutes. Me, please, because I'm on a cruel deadline. Nick, Bobby was the best man at my wedding, okay? I have a picture of my daughter. On one side of her is Bobby Durst, and on the other side is Susan Berman. Me, all right, you're gonna call me right back, promise? Nick, yes, I promise.
Nick didn't call you right back, did he?
No.
I've been there. Was that an accurate depiction, to the best of your memory, of that interview with Jay?
Yes.
At the end of the interview, when he made the point about Bobby was best man at my wedding, and talking about the picture of his daughter, Susan, is this omitting any of the conversation in between, or is this an accurate depiction of how that came up?
Absolutely accurate. If there was something in between, I would put it in parentheses.
Years later, did you go back to Nick Chabin? And I'm talking about after you had spoken to me in 2015,
Yes.
and get his permission to release to you those notes.
Yes.
When I say the name Teresa Terry Chabin, can you tell me who that is?
It's Nick Chabin's wife.
And you know her as Terry Chabin, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you first speak to Terry Chabin on November 29, 2001?
Yes.
And I have a 5-page document that shows 158, 624, and 158, 628. Ma'am, is this the same in terms of the process for your notes? Did you use the same process for November 29, 2001 interview with Terry Chabin as you did for Nick Chabin?
Yes.
Okay, just a second, you're gonna mark this as number 110?
Well, I think we're now back to the initial examination and 110. Oh, 110, okay. Okay, ma'am, you had a chance to look at these notes previously, is that correct?
Yes.
And it says phone with Gina Chabin's wife, Terry, 11/29/01. And is this an interview with Terry Chabin on that day?
Yes, I spoke to her.
And Gina, sometimes you say Gina, sometimes you say Nick. Are you referring to the same person?
I know.
If you can go through the same process that you just started with, including the first line after phone. It says can't attribute this to her. What does that mean? You can go ahead, Mr. Paul.
Under the line you read from the Chamber Chabin's wife, Terry, 11/29/01, I write, can't attribute this to her. So before I started taking Terry, let me guess. Oh, did you know Susan? Me. I wanted to talk to Chamber for a couple of reasons. His name has come up so many times in the course of the recording. Terry, but who? They were both writers, yeah. Put in that see she's referring to him and Susan. Me. Did you know Susan? Terry. Yeah, they were both at our wedding, Susan and Bobby. You know, I hadn't seen Susan in a long time, but she was just such a nice person to us, especially when Nick came to New York. She was very supportive of him, and I was parentheses, he was a musician then. Me. Everyone said Susan was effusive about Chinga. So, and I was parentheses, tape runs out. More on the flip side. Terry. She was such an interesting person. We still talk about her in the present tense. In parentheses, they read my New York Mag piece 3 or 4 times. And then back to Terry. Oh, he's completely guilty down the outside. Me. I don't get the sense that I like guys, artists on top of it.
You are referring to me on that one,
No.
right?
Terry. Fucking moron. I met him. I'll tell you now. During New York work in that Mexican. In parentheses, she met Coulter or Stevens. Continued Terry. This fucking huge fat guy. Nick and I met him yesterday. First of all, they're all weird. And this guy from fucking Westchester, he's like, I have to go pick up my kid. You know what I mean? In parentheses, I write, she thinks that Sarah is gorgeous. Back to Terry. There's a lot of politics going on between him and the district attorney office. Me, which is stupid. Terry. But she got elected, so she doesn't have to push him anymore. In parentheses, I'm jealous.
And what you're saying on Galveston, is that what Terry, you're just explaining, that's what Terry's saying?
Yeah,
Okay, continue.
Terry, I think Bobby wanted to get caught this time. You know, my whole take on the situation is that he had a nervous breakdown, kind of. Just like the cops have been saying. Me, after the case was reopened, Terry, yeah, and me, and Susan pushed him over the edge. Terry, exactly. And she probably, she probably that hysterical type of thing. And then after that, he just fucking lost it. But he also has this side of his character, like Nick always had friends. Him and Bobby, this other guy, Richie, who doesn't really know Bobby or anything. But the three of them have this sort of complex or part of their personality, where it's like a fuck you kind of thing, like a James Dean. She laughs. That's impressive. Terry, I tell him, that's your James Dean part of you, you know? You're so rebellious and anti-authority. And that's just what Nick and I figured in Galveston. I mean, if he showed up in that park in Eureka, around all those state troopers, that's another, you know, kind of fuck you to everybody, if he really did that. Me. See, I think he had to know Morris beforehand. It's just too coincidental to me that he moved into that place and went back with this guy. Terry. See, that's bugging Nick.
Page 2, I didn't indicate, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Terry, so, see, that's bugging Nick. To me, it was just like, I just thought he just got pissed off at the guy because I could see Bobby, you know, the cops kept saying, did you ever see Bobby be violent? I'm like, you just have to know him to know that he could be.
Go ahead, Ms. Paul. And let us know, by the way, I asked you, and I know it can be tiring to be reading. Let us know when, if and when you are tired or you need a break, etc.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we left off that, you know, the cops kept saying, did you ever see Bobby be violent? And I'm like, you just have to know him to know he could be. Could is a tell somebody that she's dressed. Because he got more and more bitter. When I first met him, it was like 87, I think, and he was very nice. And that was only a few years after he killed Kathy. She laughs. Meanwhile, the whole time I believed Nick. And Nick really believed that the drug dealer killed Kathy. And when I first met Nick in like 86, 87, I didn't really know. I just thought she got completely strung out, you know. I didn't know who Kathy Durst was. I didn't read the papers back then. I was like, you know, not even here. Me, well, Bobby was peddling the drug dealer story when it was still out. Terry, oh yeah, I'm sure. And I always believed Nick. And then it wasn't until later, but anyway, she trails off. And I say, well, Nick was very loyal. Terry says, yeah, me. And now to look at this and realize, poor Susan, the person she trusted more than anybody in the world. Terry, I know. And of all the people, well, you were at that service. When Nick came back, he said, well, everybody in LA said it's not Bobby, he's not a suspect. And I was like, fucking bullshit. I knew that Bobby killed Susan. Because something happened. I can't tell you, I don't want it published. Me, well, I know that she confided in a few people that she did believe he was guilty. Terry, oh yes. She told him, Chinga, in New York. She was walking around telling everybody, no. Something else that I knew that Bobby killed Susan. I know it. Me, for another reason, for reasons that had nothing to do with what Susan told people? Terry, no, you misunderstand me. Not that Bobby killed Kathy. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew it. Nick Cheney was the only person in the galaxy that believed that Bobby did not kill his wife. Me, what makes you think he killed Susan? Terry, there was something I can't tell you, but there is a reason. And so when Nick, and I already knew, when I first heard, there was something that I remembered that happened right after Christmas. And I knew that Bobby did it. And Nick and all of Susan's friends were like in denial. They couldn't believe it because they knew Bobby. And it was the same thing. To me, it's like the same old thing with Kathy, you know? Nobody trails off. And they also were like, I think it's sort of that survival mentality, like with the Menendez brothers. Okay, so she's gone. Well, maybe he lost it and accidentally killed her. In parentheses, read Kathy. But back then, I think it was an acceptable kind of fucking thing to think, to rationalize it. Me. Yeah, in the Kathy days, an abused wife, Terry. Men are allowed to do that, she laughs. You're allowed to get pissed off and kill your wife. See, and that phone call was Susan. That phone call was absolutely Susan. Because Nick said, and I was, and I have in parentheses, unclear, which means I couldn't make up the word. When I was unclear, because he didn't really talk to me about what really, he just told me it was a drug deal in the beginning. So then when this was reopened, we were talking about it, and Nick said that Susan was with Bobby and did not let anybody near Bobby for those, first few days or weeks. Nick?
Turning to page 3, which is LADA 158626.
Nick didn't have contact with Bobby, so it was only Susan, and she was in control. And another huge part of the story is the whole psychology going on. Bobby's mother committed suicide. Me, yes, and Susan's mother. Both reasons mysterious suicides. Terry, yeah, well, Susan always insisted her mother died a natural, but she was in the mental institution. Me. And at the end, Susan believed she was killed by the mob for the money. David left her. Terry. Me, because Susan never got the full fortune. Terry. Yeah, I always wondered about that. Me. One of the big things with this, no evidence that before Susan died, Bobby did all this weird stuff. Terry. Okay, let me tell you something though, he was always cheap. Me. That's a big thing. He spent $5.99 in the salon he kept. Terry. Laughs. Yeah, but look, he put it right after it went in the back. He wanted to get caught that time, or else it was a big fuck you. Like he thought he would get away with it. Me, and the people in Galveston knew instantly it wasn't Galveston guy, because they know you throw a torso in the bed, it's going to float in. Terry, oh yeah, it was like, or he definitely wanted to get caught. But we try to understand mental illness. And you don't know when a person like this is going to be rational and irrational. Me, what do you do? Terry, I'm a mother and a housewife. I used to feel funny saying that in Manhattan. I used to work with Nick in his business, but it got too much. And one of my kids has a disability. Me, Nick did advertising too, right? Terry, yeah. Anyway, my son has a lot of problem issues. He's 12. You can't really talk to Nick about this. And I have a really hard time dealing with the kids who have problem. But I talk to the site because we go once a week, and I talk to her about some things. And I write in parentheses, why is she telling me this? Terry, also, I was seeing the psychiatrist recommended by Bobby's girlfriend, Vicky Sheraton. Me in brackets, so knows her well too. Back to Terry. And I spoke to him about it sometimes. And I knew Susan Berman's psychiatrist, Dr. Heimer. I know he's talked to the cops, I think. But she, meaning Susan, wouldn't know that Bobby was going to kill her. In parentheses, we talk about Sarah. In parentheses, she meant Paul.
You're referring to Sarah Coffin and Paul Coffin?
Yes.
Please continue.
Terry, do you think they'll ever catch Bobby? I'm really nervous about him coming here. Why did they even let him out? It's a heinous crime. Nobody can understand that. When I talk to these cops, some of them are smart, but some of them are so stupid. They didn't even interview Bobby after his friend's murder. Me, I know. In parentheses, how he was living in Galveston. Terry, let me tell you, he's just so eccentric, that guy. He's just very, I think he always had something happen. He was very nice to me in the beginning when I knew him, and then he got nastier and nastier. And I thought it was because I got married to Nick, and he sort of resented. But you know, Nick had a kid before that, and so.
Turn the page to 158627.
Bobby, to me, was just getting more and more nasty. Something about him was very, very odd. He was changing over the years, and he was always cheap. When he went to, you're talking about how he lived. You know, his friend Deborah has a beautiful house in Bridgehampton, and he loved that, you know, luxury. You know, living there and having everything done for him, and living like that. But you know, then there was this other side to him. When he and Nick went to visit Las Vegas once. Nick's parents lived there. They retired there. They stayed at Nick's, you know, the second bedroom. Me, your kid. Terry, no. And this fucking guy has so much money. I could see Nick staying there because he never saw his parents. But Bobby staying there too. I mean, it was just like, he was just so cheap that he would do that. It was incredible. Did anybody tell you he was generous? Me. Just with Susan. Terry. Well, unclear in some way. Susan called and she was hysterical because she got really poor. This was like 90 after 92. I don't know exactly when. And she called me and said she was really, really poor. She was just crying, crying, crying. And the next night I happened to see Bobby and Deb and the whole Durst crew at some real estate function. And we went out for a drink, and I told Bobby that Susan's completely poor. And 2 days later, Susan called me and said, oh, thank you so much, Bobby sent me money. And you know, tens of thousands of dollars. Me, and to him that was a drop in the bucket. Terry, no, no, no. No, Bobby was cheap. This is why he killed her. All those years giving her all that money. He never gave anybody money. He was cheap. You know, he was nice as far as, like, when we would go out, when Nick and I were, before we got married, we'd all go out. And, like, I respected him, you know, as far as, like, I don't do that with people. Like, you should pick up the tab all the time. And in New York, like, you know, parentheses, you get museum event, social event, invites paid. Back to Terry. That didn't cost him money. You know how it is. So those are the only things. When we went out to dinner, we were paid for dinner. And then the next time we would pay for it. It wasn't like, and we never went anywhere expensive or anything. And he never got us like a wedding gift or a gift when our son was born. And that's fine. But don't go and say that he was generous. Because somebody said that in the press. Lisa, also with their financial motive, Kathy, she was breaking the balls.
Excuse me.
Terry.
Can you stop?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, I'm sure. With Kathy, it was probably just another thing.
Visit with you and Mr. Lowen for one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can stand and stretch if you like. I want to roll it back just a little bit, Mr. Henderson, because I think that would help.
We stopped at 4236. This is 4211.
A wedding gift or a gift when our son was born. And that's fine. But don't go and say that he was generous. Because somebody said that in the press. Lisa, also with their financial motive, Kathy, she was breaking the balls. Terry. Yeah, oh, absolutely, I'm sure. With Kathy, it was probably just another thing. It seemed like he just wanted to completely control her. And then the money thing just drove them over the edge. I don't know about the rumor that they didn't have a prenup. Plus, she's going to the white shoe law firm to get money. I mean, it must have indicated something. Me. I wonder if money is always one of the factors. Terry, absolutely. Me. If there was something with Morris Black. Terry. What's your name after that? Okay, I'll tell you. One other thing, I want to tell you something about the Durst family. Remember the crane found in Times Square? Okay. How much money did they give to charity for that? Do you remember? Maybe $15,000? Is that sick? Is that fucking sick? I can't believe these sons of bitches.
Final page, page 158, 628.
I mean, you know, I really thought Seymour was a great New Yorker. You know, he's the one that headed up the whole 42nd Street renovation. And he had the foresight, he knew that come the turn of the century, we were going to be back on top again. And he was always very nice to me. You know, I heard he was just so cheap with Kathy's family and everything. In parentheses, I read, which is so stupid. Back to Terry. Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, Nick's Jewish and I'm Catholic. And like, I got just a really bad feeling. I think they looked down on Kathy because she wasn't Jewish, even though they weren't Orthodox. I think, yeah, in parentheses, it was a big deal. I think it was. You know, it's funny, when I got married, Bobby was talking about that whole situation, like her being Catholic, because I was Catholic, but we were getting married in a synagogue. But anyway, so I'll tell Nick, me. Maybe we can get together and have dinner or something under any terms that are comfortable for you. Because I'm certainly aware of the fear people have right now until he is found. But if there's a way we can get together, then I give her my numbers. Terry, you know, Nick does real estate advertising. So it's put us in this predicament where, like, we don't really want our names out there. Because, you know, in real estate, people are acting like trails off. Me, that's not a problem. Some people want to be unnamed and some don't. That's your choice. I know you're a credible source. Terry, I know. It's just, he's out there. He's out there, and he's crazy. And then if you're in the real estate field, you don't want to open your mouth because they don't want you to. Me, well, however, but I'd love to meet you and talk. Terry, I'll definitely get together with you. Even if Nick, you know, Nick's very busy, but I'm sure he'd love to talk to you because we both, you know, this can help Kathy and Susan, even though Nick doesn't understand. I just feel so bad for him, you know. He won't even admit how he feels. Me, he has two friends, one is dead and one is Terry, and it's just hard for him to accept. Anyway, all right, so, and I have a note. We hang up, I have a note to myself at the end. She's very chatty on the first call, and I call her back on the 30th to tell her Bobby is arrested, which she already knows. Maybe she was chilling.
Sure, shall we resume? Can I take a break now?
Yeah, sure.
So it's time for our afternoon recess. We'll break until 3:15. We'll resume at that time. Do not discuss your testimony with any other witness until you resume the witness stand, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, we're back in session in People versus Robert Durst. Mr. Durst is here, Mr. Chesnoff, and Mr. Lynn and colleagues are here representing the people. Ms. DePaulo has resumed the witness stand. You remain under oath. And Mr. Lynn, you may continue with your examination.
And I have one more exhibit on the Marcus Peoples 111. This is labeled more from Terry Chapin, 12-801. Is this a document you recognize?
Yes.
Well, with respect to the way it was prepared, is it the same as the other two documents?
Exactly.
And again, do you have full and complete memory of everything that's contained in this 3-page interview?
Not word for word, but I have a clear memory.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to do what you described. I have in boldface, not for attribution. Me, several tell me at the memorial service that Nick was pretty upset because Susan had said to him that she knew things about what happened to Kathy and that Bobby knew she knew. And that he was upset about it, struggling with it. Terry, Nick, I mean, you have to talk to Nick, but that sounds weird. Me.
Please back up, but that sounds, what did that mean for saying that?
I took the but that sounds, and she said weird. That was my interpretation of her. That she thought it sounded weird.
Okay.
Me, but did Susan tell him that she knew Bobby did it? Terry, no, let me tell you, Nick, and you can't quote me or anything. It seems to be some friends. Some people said, Susan told some people she knew that Bobby did it. But Nick and this other guy, Doug Oliver, the two of them really believed Bobby didn't do it. In parentheses, I write, they were among his closest friends, yes. In parentheses, I write, she met Nick in '86, and they were the only two guy friends Bobby hung out with. Terry, let me tell you something, and she laughed. Doug Oliver and him didn't believe even after Galveston. It's sort of like their minds had this block. Even with Galveston, it was like, there's no way Bobby could have done that. Because for so many years, they believing Bobby was this other type of person.
Let me stop you. When you're using the word him, you're referring to Nick, is that correct? Or Terry's referring to Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
I would. Me, what do they believe now? Terry, they're just so upset. Me, but as far as you know, Susan never said to Nick, I know Bobby did. Terry, not to Nick, but I know other people. And I don't want to, in parentheses, can't give me their names. Terry, a year and a half ago, I met one of Nick's old girlfriends, in parentheses, Diane, and she said, yeah, Susan told me Bobby did it.
Yes.
It doesn't say told me.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. Yeah, Susan, me, Bobby did it. And she told other people that Bobby did it. Me, way back when or recent? Terry, way back when? Terry, it seems like to me, people who did it, Bobby, Susan would say, yeah, Bobby did it, but the close circle had to have their loyalty. Me. So maybe what was misinterpreted at the service was him saying that he knew. She told other people. Terry. Yeah, because at the service, this happened a year before that when I saw Nick's old girlfriend. And let me tell you, I didn't know that there was this thing that maybe Bobby did it. I thought it was a drug deal. And I believed that for so many years. He told people it was drug dealers. He told people it was drug dealers. Terry, Nick believed Bobby, and Bobby had told him it was the drug dealers. Me, her drug dealers, Terry, yeah. And this was before OJ, parentheses, last. And I thought maybe she was living in a crack den. This is what I pictured Kathy at that point, in parentheses. Realize the absurdity now. In parentheses, and Terry again. Nick really believed Bobby that she was going to be thrown out of school. And that's why she did more and more drugs, because she was going to be thrown out. Nick had no clue, trails off. So it seems, even though they knew Kathy, they all rationalized it because it's such a heinous thing.
Turning to page 2, 15862. I think that I asked you this, but this is from your December 8, 2001 interview with Nick.
Terry.
I'm Terry, excuse me. And just to be clear, the first interview that I read to you, I'm sorry, that you read was Nick's interview. But if we go chronologically, the first interview you did was Terry, then followed by Nick, and now this interview with Terry.
Correct.
And to the best of your memory, did you, one second. Oh, on the back up, I'm sorry. The first interview was with Terry, followed by a second interview with Terry, and then the interview with Dick. Is that correct?
That's what, it sounds like that from what's on here, that,
The dates on the interview, on the exhibits,
Yes,
when you
yes.
write the date,
They're
use
correct.
the correct dates. Are continue, I'm sorry, we're on page 2 of this interview. Go ahead, ma'am.
me, after Susan died, did Bobby ask weird? Terry, no. And Del Albert said, you should call him. I think he's in New York. He said, Bobby really pulled it off. He looked the same, he acted the same before and after, except for being very sad about Friend Susan, her death. Me, does anyone know where he was Christmas Eve? Terry, the cops didn't even question him. Me, I'm Deborah Lee. Just how long was she dating about it? It seems like it was definitely over 12 years. Terry, yeah, they've been together a long time. Me, but was it 20? Did she know him when Kathy was alive? Terry, no, and in parentheses, how lots of people dislike her and went, wow. Me, so am I safe to say that she met him after Kathy disappeared? Terry, oh, absolutely. Me, but not long after? Terry, no, see, they're both in middle stage, so she knew about it. Me, so if I go with 15 years, am I going to be wrong? Terry, what year would that be? Me, like 86? Terry, I think it was closer to 88, 87 or 88. Because when I first came back to the country, it was 85, 86, and Bobby didn't know her then. So I definitely know it wasn't the first year or two I was with Nick. Me. So what's in it for her? They don't live together. After 14 years, they don't tell anyone about the wedding. Terry, I can't, and then in brackets, tells me to read Manhattan Ink, get that article on her, tells me to rush and get it. It was very interesting.
Ms. Rose, can you explain to me, does that mean that's something that's not verbatim, but that I'm confused about what the brackets?
You may ask the witness what she means by brackets, that's her document. I think she explained before, but when you reiterate.
Yeah, you can, go ahead and ask her, I'm not sure exactly what you.
Okay, I may take the witness on board here.
When you put things in brackets, is that because it's not a verbatim
Yes.
transcription, but it's the words of the person who are
Words.
interviewing, correct?
Correct.
Can you make the
Go ahead, ma'am.
Back to Terry, don't quote me. Her face is on the cover of the magazine. I don't know what it should was, but I would rather refer you to that. What do you think Deborah would have gotten out of this whole thing? Me, well, the only explanation is money. Terry, did Bobby have Kathy declared dead? So what does that make the marriage? And if I were you, look at the dates. Me, I see what his motive was, but what's hers? Terry, come on. Me, is there any other thing besides money? Terry, well, I think even though she went through a horrible divorce, maybe there was love there. I mean, there had to be some kind of affection and feeling of comfort with each other. But on her part, I mean, in parentheses, doesn't want to say what she really thinks. Her again, look, I really can't tell you any more about her. Just read the article. That'll give you a lot on her personality. The thing to focus on with her is not so much about her, but Bobby and his connection with these women and how his mother committed suicide. Me. And she doesn't get custody of her kid. Terry, oh, you know about that? Me. And she lost the business once. Terry, yeah, because of the divorce apparently. Me, do you think she's talking to anybody? Terry, no. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Me, she could be in deep shit now. Accessory?
Turn to page 3, the final page.
Parentheses. Thinks she's having a party tonight, December 8th. She has an annual party every year at this time at the Four Seasons restaurant. Terry, people in her office are like really scared of her. I'm scared of her. She's just me, tough as nails. Terry, yeah, so it's sort of gruesome. She has her annual party. It's always on a Saturday, 2 weeks before Christmas. and it might be tonight. And it's always at the Four Seasons restaurant. Parentheses, tells me to call the restaurant. Terry again, it's for her clients, she does it every year. Parentheses, thanks last year it would have been around the wedding. True. End of parentheses. Back to Terry. When I heard there was a secret wedding, I said to Nick, you know, were you there? Come on, they live in 2 different states. And then how about you lost touch with everybody? Writing that to the end of parentheses. Terry, he really cut us off. Not very nice. Parentheses, how nice Susan was to her and her kids. Me, do you think he killed Susan? Terry, I can't tell you anything. I'm scared to say anything. I'm afraid. You know the Durst family. What kind of responsibility do they have for finding treatment for Bobby? And did Seymour recognize this in his kids? Because obviously his wife had mental illness. In parentheses, doesn't think Seymour killed her. Back to Terry. And Seymour was mentally ill. Parentheses, thinks Bobby surely is as well. Her kid's shrink told her Bobby had pathological, aggressively antisocial behavior. The pathological, aggressive, antisocial behavior was her direct words. A, quote, compulsion to be aggressively antisocial, in parentheses, and a sociopath. Wonders if there are other victims we don't know about. Terry, especially think of Bobby going off by himself, cutting off his friends and family, going to Northern California, sitting around doing what? What was he doing? He wasn't going 9 to 5 to a job that he was a minute. Me, always something socially connected about him? Terry, yeah, and I always attributed it to him being a little spoiled. Me, right, people read it as rich eccentricities. And I have in parentheses, remember talking to himself and Kim.
What does that mean?
I was reminding myself, as I wrote, that another source on the record, Kim Langford, talked about how he would talk to himself.
Bob Durst would speak to himself.
Correct.
Please continue.
Me, but there must have been a charming side. Terry, there seemed to be a sensitive side. I wouldn't say like the lounging, soft and buzzy, but there was a part of him that wasn't always aloof. We didn't see him, in parentheses, last, like you said, living in shitholes and cross-dressing. And he was always on the cheap side. I'm sorry I can't hold him right.
And again, is this an accurate depiction of the interview that you had with, actually, Mr. Martin, you can do it word by word, verbatim?
Yeah.
And, now, at the time that these interviews were taking place, the defendant, Mr. Durst, was a fugitive from Texas, is that correct?
Yes.
So this is after the Morris Black killing, but before he had been caught?
Yeah.
Now, when, did you later get permission from Terry Chapin? By later, I mean after you spoke to me in 2015, to reveal
Yes.
the contents? Oh, you have to finish, let me finish up just so you know so let me repeat it. Did you later get permission, after 2015, from Terry Chapin to reveal the contents of the interviews?
Yes, I did.
And in fact, in all three of the interviews that we just went through, all of those were off the record, correct?
No. Terry, oh, I'm sorry, with the two Terrys and then one Nick?
Yes.
Oh, those were all.
Yes.
Ah,
When I say Talk Magazine, is that a magazine you're familiar with?
yeah.
And how are you familiar with that magazine?
I worked there on contract for
And
its last 8 months of existence.
in February of 2002, did you write an article titled, quote, "What Made Bobby Run," unquote?
Yes.
And this article basically talked about the Morris Black killing as well as Kathy's disappearance, is that correct?
Yes.
When I say the name Julie Smith, is that someone you're familiar with?
Yes,
In that article, did you quote Julie Smith?
yes, I did.
And did Julie Smith tell you the following? Quote, at the memorial, there were troubling anecdotes shared in the same private moments before and after the service. One of Berman's friends, mystery writer Julie Smith, stood dumbfounded when another mourner told her, quote, that Susan had told him that she knew Bobby killed his wife. To Smith, Berman had always said, no way he's involved. He's involved. Is that what Julie Smith told you?
Yes,
And at the time, strike that, the individual that Julie Smith was referring, to that had told her that, did she tell you that was Nick Chater?
yes,
Was that something that you put in the article?
no,
And obviously, it sounds like a dumb question, but Julie Smith made this statement to you prior to February 2002 when the article was published, correct?
correct.
Right. When I say the name Janine Pirro, is that something you are familiar with?
Yes,
Can you explain who Janine Pirro is and how you know her?
that'll take a long time.
Okay, who is Janine Pirro?
She was the district attorney of Westchester County when a very reputable state police officer opened up the Kathy Durst case.
And how did you come into contact with Janine Pirro?
I first came into contact with her in spring of '99. I had contacted her with a profile of her for the New York Times Magazine. It was right when her husband had been indicted.
And in doing the profile on Ms. Pirro, did you obviously get to know her and speak to her?
Yes,
And did you later become aware that she had involvement in Kathy Durst investigation?
later.
And pursuant to your relationship with her, did Janine Pirro provide you any information on the case?
Yes,
And what, if anything, did she give you?
information about the case. Information from the LAPD.
And let me ask you, did you ever discuss with Janine Pirro whether investigators from her office or the New York State Police who were working on the investigation into Kathy's death had actually made contact with Susan prior to her death?
Yes,
And what did Janine Pirro tell you at the time?
she led me to believe that they had made contact prior to the death. I much later
Go ahead.
discovered that was not true.
And in fact, you quoted in the article what made Bobby run. You said the following: Janine Pirro went public with the fact that her office was trying to track Berman down to see what she knew about Bobby and Kathy Durst. Before they could get to her, she was dead.
That's hyped,
I'll repeat that.
yes. I've been trying to track.
You wrote, Janine Pirro went public with the fact that her office had been trying to track Berman down to see what she knew about Bobby and Kathy Durst. Before they could get to her, she was dead. Unquote. Do you remember writing that?
Yes,
Based on your conversation with Janine Pirro, at this point in time, is your understanding from Janine Pirro that they in fact actually reached out to Kathy, I'm sorry, to Susan Berman, or simply that they intended to do so?
I got the sense from her that they had done more than just think about it.
And you indicated that you later discovered that that was untrue.
Correct.
When I say the name Joey Becerra, is that somebody that you know?
Yes,
And who is Joey Becerra?
he was the young state trooper who opened up to Kathy, had the old file on Kathy, missing woman, and brought it to Bureau and said we really should take another look at this case.
Did Joey Becerra ever give you any materials on the case?
No.
It's about the noon hour, Your Honor. I stopped the video at 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 41 seconds.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to return on Monday, 9 a.m. So have a nice long weekend, of course. Don't talk about the case or any of the people or any subject involved in it with anyone. Don't converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. Drive safely. Wear your mask and keep safe. We know that Delta variant is floating around, and we want you to be as careful as you can be. We want you to be healthy throughout this trial so we can finish our work. We're doing very, very well schedule-wise, so we're well ahead of schedule. So please take care. I see the light at the end. So take care. We'll have a great weekend. Relax. We'll see you next Monday. Mr. Chesnaw?
I think you have an order shortening time.
I do. You've given a copy to the people.
Yes.
Yes, I'm inclined to go to grant it and hear you out before 10 days. It seems that the last possible day that your witness would be available would be July 29. I have made an inquiry with, as far as my getting updated medical records, which I certainly would want to see. I don't know what the people's position is on my hearing it. It seems I ought to hear it. There is a claim, I glanced at it, and there's a claim of deteriorating conditions. The case law hasn't changed, so I'm going to assess it by the same standards. You've pointed to other authorities I see also, and I'll read them in addition to what I've already considered. We're not going to fill up next Thursday with evidence. The people's evidence will likely be concluded early that day. And, right?
Well, we're not, so that's an issue that we're trying to figure out now. So it's our understanding going through it, and I hope the court understands with the stipulations, it means that it really changes things. So we go back and try to compute how that speeds us up. So on Monday, we have a little bit of this to finish, which is very little. Then
40 minutes.
Yeah, then we're going to do Jarecki and Smerling, which we might be able to finish that day. We're not sure. Might go into Tuesday. We also have an issue with Nick and Terry Chavin. We're not sure. Nick Chavin, we're definitely calling. Terry Chavin, you know, I'm still, Mr. Chesnoff asked me in the middle of Ms. DePaulo's testimony if we were still calling, if we were calling Terry Chavin. I told him that I thought we were, but that's not definitive. I still have to figure out, go through whether I'm even going to need to call her. So the issue with Nick Chavin, though, is
think skeptically.
what's that?
I'd say I advise you to think skeptically. I've heard I've heard the way she communicates here by through this witness.
Yes.
And I don't know what she's going to add, but you may take some time subtracting from a lot of things that she talks about that she doesn't actually know.
That is very likely where we're heading. As court knows, we just want to make sure that we look it over and are smart about it. There's an issue that's come up, and I'm not blaming the defense at all on this because I know that they are doing what they can. But as the court's aware, we've been asking for many, many months about stipulations on witnesses. Jarecki and Smerling was always a negative. They did not want to stipulate. And then all of a sudden, they proposed the stipulation.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
And we did it. Nick Chavin was also always, they're not going to stipulate. I was approached, and I've extended the deadline on this with them more times than I can count, as I know Mr. Chesnoff would agree.
No,
Because
I agree.
because there's a whole lot of work that's involved in the actual physical editing of the testimony. So as of Monday, I was told there was not going to be a stipulation. And then yesterday, I was told by Mr. DeGuerin, you know what, and Mr. Chesnoff, there might be a stipulation, and you should be working on it. So I'm trying to go through it. I have to finish going through, I have another 100 pages to go through. Then we would have to edit it. So here's the issue that we have. If we don't have a stipulation, then I'm going to have to call Nick Chavin. Nick is going to take some time to present. I also have to figure out, it's Wednesday today. If we look at our timing, Your Honor, as we were just explaining, Monday, maybe we finish Jarecki and Smerling. We still have to do the interview. We still have to read in a couple of other stipulations. Then there's the question of if we're going to call Special Agent Eric Perry. He is only available next week on Thursday because, again, everything has sped up. And if Nick Chavin ends up testifying, then that's going to extend it further. So I guess what I want to let the court know is we're kind of in a position where we're trying to figure things out as quickly as we can, but the defense now is waiting on me to give them the copy of what we would agree to on a stipulation.
Listen, this doesn't have to take all day for me to hear this witness. This doctor has already made a declaration.
Yeah.
I certainly would have some questions for him. I'll give you 30 minutes.
Right.
You might want to go litigate it at length, or you may want a two-part. In other words, I don't know if you want to present something in response. I've already communicated with Karen Joint. Neither she nor doctors will be available next week to testify. If you wanted to present other evidence regarding Mr. Durst's health, I think so that's up to you. You think about what you need to present. It might be doable in 30 minutes. So the reason we're talking about this is to talk about whether or not we're going to have a hearing on this point next Thursday.
Right, Your Honor. So where I was going, though, was the court, what prompted me to say this is the court said, hey, you're going to be done by this date. So the problem is depending on what happens with Dick Chavin, I'm in a position where, and then we also have Special Agent Perry.
You don't have to be done for me to do this hearing next Thursday.
Okay, I just wanted to let the court know when the court
I
said
hope you're
that.
done, though.
Your Honor, and just so
Yeah.
the court knows, sometimes, as you know, lawyers have a different opinion about what should happen than their client. And so the reason why Mr. Lewin is preparing a potential Chavin stipulation is because some of the lawyers think that it would be a good idea, and we want to see what it would be so we could discuss it with our client.
Sure. I mean, you're making Mr. Lewin do some extra work here, but I can't tell you how many. I mean, how many trials do you prepare for? You do a ton of work, only at the last minute to get a wonderful settlement. The settlement's because of your work. So likewise, here your edit of this Chavin video may lead to one resolution or another, but you ought to edit it and be prepared for the possibility of showing it.
That's what we're doing. The problem
Yeah.
is obviously that affects the scheduling. The final thing, Your Honor,
Yes.
is to supplement what we discussed in chambers. I just wanted to refer the court also to stipulation 50.
I'll look at stipulations 45 and 50. Mr. Chesnoff brought to my attention problems with Ms. DePaulo's conditional examination and the quotation in particular, I think, of Terry Chavin. So, sure, I'll look at it. 45, and the other one was 50.
Stipulation 50.
I'll look at
50
45 and 50. It may be resolved by
Right.
those
And,
stipulations.
and as you're looking at it, Your Honor, and just so it's clear, both sides, when we agreed on our side to use conditional examinations instead of live witnesses, we realized we were giving up something.
Right.
And so we negotiated specifically these transcripts. Both sides agreed this is what we presented to the jury. So that's where we sit, Your Honor.
Sure. Worst case scenario, of course, you can argue that it doesn't make sense. Right? So that's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, in the 29th, what time is the,
I do it at 8:30.
and would I be able to, because that's the only day that Special Agent Perry can testify, he's not going to be extremely lengthy. You think we would have time at some point that day to deal with Special Agent Perry? Or is the jury not going to be here on that day?
No, they'll be here. Of course they'll be here.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they'll be here. I'm talking about taking half an hour
8:30.
before they get here to hear about Mr. Durst's health.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a nice-
All right,
good week.
Department 1 is adjourned.
See you next week.